Folks, this one's coming a little out of left field, but I love finding Easter eggs in games. It's always cool to find hidden details that the developers left there just for the most curious explorers. And Horizon 5 actually has quite a few Easter eggs hidden throughout its world, some of which are rarely or possibly never talked about. So I'm going to show you guys all of my favorite Easter eggs hidden throughout Mexico, and some of them you may know, at least partially, but I can pretty much guarantee there are at least a few secrets here that almost nobody has ever found. So let's dive in with a big one right away that I'm sure some of you have seen before, but I really like this one because it's just such a classic Easter egg. It's not too hard to find, but you'd never see it through normal gameplay, and it's a fun reference to another piece of media. On the Rally Adventure map, this small lake borders the play area, and if you drive too far into the water, you'll just get reset. However, there is a small island out beyond the barrier that harbors a secret. If you jump into Event Lab, which gives you a free cam, you can break beyond the normal map boundary and fly over to the far side of this island to find... This is a very clear reference to the movie Castaway, where Tom Hanks is stranded on a desert island and ends up making friends with a volleyball he names Wilson. So this one has definitely been discovered by others. I think this island just has that aura about it that makes you want to come and see if there's anything here, but I wanted to start off with this because it's such a fun Easter egg. I really think it's one of the best in the game. Now let's move on to another hidden detail that I've seen a bit of discussion about online, but never really with a complete answer to why it exists. At the main festival site, the plane you launched out of at the start of the game and then saw in a few showcases remains parked at the end of the runway. This plane has a decal on it displaying a lion with some Latin text and then 2021 in Roman numerals, the year Horizon 5 released. The Latin translates roughly to pass judgment or stand trial, which when paired with the lion is a direct reference to the trial in Horizon. This is the logo for the trial events in Forza Horizon 4. Now interestingly, if we go to the abandoned airfield, there are a lot of other broken down cargo planes, and these have a similar decal, but it's not the same. On all of these planes, the Roman numerals are for 2018, when Horizon 4 released. They also have a 2021 HZN, or Horizon, badge on the front, which is not on the newer plane. So I think the in-universe lore here, or at least my headcanon, is perhaps that these planes were used for shipping the festival gear and cars around during Horizon 4 in Great Britain, and then the new plane was obviously used for Mexico's festival. Not the best service life, perhaps, for these older planes, but I can't really think of a better explanation. Let me know if you guys can think of anything else. Alright, now before we move on to some really hidden Easter eggs, I want to cover one more kinda open secret that many players probably have seen at least partially. And there's a reason we're covering this one. It will come back later. Have you ever found any of the hidden pinatas in Horizon 5's map? There are quite a few of these cute little guys scattered all over Horizon 5, even in the DLCs. I think the most popular one is here, right in this doorway in Guanajuato, but most people miss the others, like this one right above it. There's also another hiding in the archway above Mulegé, and another close by on the roof of Alejandra's workshop. The first one I actually ever found was on the Rally Adventure map. This one here seemingly overlooking the mural for the late Tom Galton, which is actually a bit of a bonus Easter egg. This is a mural placed here to memorialize one of the lead engineers at Playground after his passing in 2022. And I like to think that the level designer put this pinata here overlooking the mural as a bit of an extra nod of respect and remembrance from one dev to another. So again, even though quite a few players may have found at least one or two of these sneaky pinatas, I think they are some of the better Easter eggs in Horizon 5, and I'd bet most players haven't found all of them. Now, speaking of not finding all of them, let's talk about a series of Easter eggs that I don't think anyone had ever completely found before I did with some viewers in my stream a couple years ago. This one takes place on Hot Wheels Island, and I want to thank Equinox for cluing me into the fact that these existed because of a now deleted tweet from a level designer at Playground. So in each one of the Hot Wheels qualifier events, there is a hidden dinosaur. The first one is hidden just out of sight at the start of the race behind this stone barrier. Turn the corner instead of going straight, and the first T-Rex will reveal itself. The second is a bit further in, and perhaps disguised a little better as well, but still hidden in pretty plain sight if you know where to look. Now, our third dino is definitely hiding better. Just past this loop-de-loop, while you fly around at like 200 miles an hour, there is another T-Rex watching you from the sidelines. Then finally, the fourth dino is the most well-hidden of the bunch. You may have noticed this giant Hot Wheels dragon, but he has a little buddy too. So while a few people did know about these existing somewhere, I've never seen anyone find them all before that day on my stream, and still today, never really see anyone talk about it. Alright, and now that we've talked about the hidden dinosaurs and hidden pinatas, we can finally head to another pretty infamous Easter egg spot back in Rally Adventure. Underneath this bridge on the west side of the map is a small secret hideout that has some really interesting decor, like a pinata and a T-Rex. The very same props we can find hidden throughout the rest of the game. You can also find a little 3D model of the Horizon logo made out of tiny scaled down shipping crates, which I think is fun. And because I'm sure the dev who built this had to reuse existing props, this donut and soda can are actually scaled down versions of much bigger inflatable props you can place in the event lab. So this hideout here in the final DLC for Horizon 5 is kind of the culmination of a series of Easter eggs in the game. This is the secret hideout of the guy who's been hiding stuff all over Mexico. Now, I do know that the developer who hid the dinos is David Orton, now a lead designer who's been at Playground ever since Horizon 3, and I believe he also may have hid the pinatas as well, and so I think he built this little hideaway as a final payoff of sorts. And I just love that there's kind of a thread of connection between all these secrets. This is a place that many players have found, but it just means so much more when you have the context behind it. So this is quite possibly my favorite Easter egg in Horizon 5. And David, if you ever do watch this video, I would love to get a confirmation on if this is your spot here. And while we're at it, does the map on this laptop mean anything? I've stared at this quite a bit over the years and just have never been able to decide if it's a clue for something greater or just a simple, meaningless design made for a simple asset that you can find elsewhere in the game. Alright, now let's stay in Rally Adventure for one more Easter egg, and this one's a little different because I don't believe the devs intended to leave this here. Behind many video game waterfalls are secrets, and you may have looked at this one and thought to yourself, oh yeah, there's definitely something back there, only to be disappointed when you drove up to it and hit a boring stone cliff. But that may not have always been the intention. If we break out of the map using the event lab again and go underneath the terrain behind the waterfall, you can actually find a pretty obvious partially finished pathway leading from the base of the waterfall up to this unassuming cliff off to the side. This very clearly looks like some scrapped content that they perhaps wanted to use in a showcase or special event, or just to have in the open world, and clearly it didn't work out because it has been closed off with nothing but the hidden remains left for us to find. And this is another really fun one for me because not only do I think barely anyone knows about this, it also makes me think about, like, what happened here? Why didn't this path end up working out? What decision led to it being cut from the final map? And did they just forget about it, or was it left here on purpose for some reason? But that aside, it's time to move on to another Easter egg that I have never seen anyone talk about. It's not too hard to find, but you really have to know where to look, and I'm not sure if anyone's gone looking. So Horizon 5, quite famously, has these really cool murals scattered around the map. There's only one of each of these in a unique location in the world, and they get used as spots for photo challenges or whatever. They aren't too hidden, but there is a very well hidden duplicate of one of these murals. And I'll show you where it is, but first I need to explain parallax interiors. This is a very common trick used in video games to convincingly fake a 3D space, usually an interior room behind a window or doorway, by using essentially a 2D image, which is of course much easier to render and saves a ton of performance. Horizon games use these all over. Basically, any window or door you look through will have a parallax interior behind it. And all of these are fairly generic. You know, you've got a dentist's office, a cosmetics shop, a variety of food and clothing stores, a lot of stuff like that. If you saw these outside of Horizon, you really wouldn't have any reason to think these were from Forza at all. They're nice rooms, but ultimately and intentionally generic, with one exception. If you go to this building across from the Apex Festival site south of Playa Azul and break past this barrier again, most easily done with Event Lab, you can look inside this nice little restaurant to find on the far right wall another copy of the bear mural. And don't get me wrong, this isn't like some massive reveal or anything, but it's another hidden detail that just makes me think, what led to this being here? There are hundreds of buildings in the game, and every single other interior design is nothing more than a simple room. You aren't meant to spend time looking at these, and they don't have anything in them specific to Horizon, but this one does. There's a unique piece of game art hidden in this random room that you'd never look inside. So I think that makes this a really cool Easter egg. Also, for a bonus here, while we're on the topic of parallax interiors, if you want something a bit spooky, there are no people to be found anywhere in these interiors, with, again, one exception. On the very far right of this clothing shop, almost out of view unless you have the original artwork, is a pair of bare feet and legs hidden behind a changing room curtain. And while this may not be the next Herobrine creepypasta, I do think it's kinda weird that out of all these buildings that could have totally normal people shopping around, sitting at chairs or behind desks or whatever, the one single piece of evidence for a person is hidden behind a curtain in the corner of a dimly lit room. Alright dudes, now we have to close out this video with one more bonus Easter egg that I am quite confident nobody has ever found. In fact, as far as I'm aware, only 2 people know about its existence, and that's because I told them. Not even the devs at Playground know about this one because, well, it's something I hid in the official Hoki Hoshi test track, published nearly 4 years ago with well over 50,000 plays across its multiple versions. When I built this track, I hid a breadcrumb trail of secrets that would end up spelling out a secret code. The first person to figure out this code and send it to me would receive a small prize. However, nobody ever sent me the code. The mystery has remained unsolved all these years, so the deal is off because I'm going to expose my greatest Horizon secret right here. If you've played this track, you may have seen a few tank mascots around the map. These are used somewhat often in event labs as kind of a stand-in for people or crowds because, well, we can't really place people in event lab, so you might not have thought anything of them as you drove by at 100 miles an hour, but if you happen to look at this one here, you may notice a chest right below him, hidden in plain sight. And if you hit the chest, a hidden message will appear on screen. This is the beginning of the hunt. The little tank figure introduces himself as me and says that he lives near the track, so you should stop by. And then you get the first piece of the code. I made this first one, I thought, pretty easy to find, kinda hidden in plain sight to where maybe someone would accidentally hit it at some point. And then, of course, once you know you're onto something, you can comb the map looking for the rest of the clues. But I guess out of the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of laps run at this track, nobody ever did. You guys were just too focused on your pace and didn't stop to smell the treasure chests. So Tank Hoki says that he lives near the track, and so it happens just beyond Anchovy Apex there is a small house, and who do we find hanging out on the porch? Tank Hoki, waving you down again. Hit the chest in the parking area, and I'll tell you that I actually work for the track, but on hot days I need somewhere shady to rest, like perhaps a tent. So if we drive up a bit further and leave the track yet again behind the grandstands at Confluence Crossing, there is a staff tent, with Tank Hoki getting some much deserved and cool rest inside. This time he tells you that he's thinking about taking a trip on an airplane, and as it so happens, the test track borders the old airfield. If you explore around here for a little bit, you'll find Tank hanging out by an airplane pointing at that emblem we talked about earlier. And above him on the wing of the airplane is our next chest. This time he mentions having second thoughts about leaving the track because he thinks it's really fun to watch you race around all the time. So he asks you to find him where it all begins, where you've always seen him even if you didn't know it. Right here at the grandstands behind the start of the lap is Tank Hokey. He's been here the whole time. And if you break out of the track one final time to get around behind the grandstands, you will find a final chest. Tank Hokey thanks you for hanging out and says he'll always be in the stands to cheer you on, and then the message prompts you to hit me up on Discord with the full code. And there you have it, my final mystery exposed, and with that, the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Definitely let me know how many of these you did or didn't know about, or if you have any other Easter eggs you want to share. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.